Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Please feel free to turn around so your neck is not compromised if you feel like you want to look. So tonight is our first day of Rohatsu Sesshin here in the year 2024. And we've just come through quite a few intense weeks. Several of you here have been involved in the care of Jikyo, the last minute Debbie, Bob, Kirsta, Siri, Simi, I apologize. Simi, my bad, Fletcher, and Steve and I have all done some part, along with others, some part of the care of Jikyo, the end of life matters, and the care of the cremation, and then the preparation for the funeral. And so it's been a pretty intense time, and all of you have been just incredible in responding to the needs that Jikyo's daughter Kim had in clearing out the apartment and just all of the details. Death is so complicated. It's not an easy thing to do personally, to die. It is a monumental task. We've been at it from the minute we were born, knowing that we would come to it. So it's this huge event, actually, a majestic event that comes about. And it's so big a thing, and it's such a huge thing to do that we're all going to do. But it's so monumental and so majestic. And we've all come to Rohatsu Sesshin, I think, to quiet down and to drive down into the depth of our service and our practice and who we are and all of those things. Feels to me like a very quiet sesshin in terms of our exhaustion, very awake on the cushion, and at the same time, a sense of just emotional exhaustion and physical exhaustion also. So I am equal with you in that I have not the bandwidth to be able to prepare big talks for this sesshin. And I'm only going to talk twice anyway, tonight and tomorrow night. And after that, we'll go into silence. But there's a little few things that I've been thinking about that are a bit related. But we are in this time of darkness that we come to at this time of year. You know, the winter solstice comes and we head down into this dark winter time. And at the same time, as we drive through the neighborhood at night, we will see all these colorful lights appearing and this warmth that we feel is generated inside those homes. And it's also, the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah. It's a time of Hanukkah. And Christmas also is another time of light, a celebration of light. But so is the Buddha's awakening, which we celebrate this coming Sunday. And so, the story, of course, is that the Buddha entered a deep meditative practice and sat under the bo tree. And when the morning star came up, he looked at the morning star and was awakened. That's the story we receive. I do think if you've ever seen the morning star, there's something very special about it that's different from the other stars. There's some gorgeous presence about it. It's just shining in the sky, just as dawn is coming up. Even just a bit before dawn, the sky is still dark, but it gets that really deep blue right at that time of night. And it does have a special light to it. If you haven't ever seen it, please get up and try and see it sometime. It's got a presence to me different from the other stars. I don't know why, not because of the Buddha. It's just that it's so absolutely pure and shining and doesn't entirely light up the sky at all, but you feel that it goes out like that. So we have our time of light also, and sometimes Hanukkah and all of these times coincide. But we chanted this morning, light and dark are relative to one another like forward and backward steps. And it begins a little earlier than that too. Bright and darkness, there is light, but don't see it as light. Light and dark are relative to one another like forward and backward steps. I constantly think about the meaning of that when we chant it in the mornings. Right in light, there is darkness. Right in darkness, there is light. So these phenomena of light and dark speaking to one another in some kind of way, and each one relative to one another. I think we think about death as darkness too, going into a kind of darkness, but we can also see it as going into the light. So we have both of these at the same time, both of the metaphor of the dark and the light radiating from the dying body that comes out when the body dies. I've seen it, so I know it's there. I know it's true. And with Jikyo, I mentioned that when we were washing her body and we lifted her head, her eyes popped open as if she was looking at the light. It was so wonderful a moment. And then looking into her eyes, you know, the depth and beauty of death. And at the same time, there's still light there. So it was very, very beautiful. So we don't have one without the other. We imagine that perhaps there was only total darkness in the universe before the Big Bang. And then suddenly the universe erupted in the light of just all kinds of things happening and so forth. And if we look at the pictures, oh my goodness, the pictures of deep space, I mean, they're just awesome and unbelievable to think that we are in the midst of that light reflecting from millions of years ago, millions of years to reach us, to be able to see that. Such a stunning universe that we are in. And at the same time, we have all of that light. We have in ourselves, was it Freud or was it Jung that called the dark side? I think it's Jung is the dark side of the self, the unknown part of ourselves that many of us are frightened of because we don't know the dark side of our own selves. We don't know its meaning. We don't know what is hidden within our own selves. And we tend to shield ourselves from looking at the totality of the self. It's the same as wanting to see the dark side of the moon. We know it's there. And how fascinating is the dark side of the moon. And so this darkness within us that we carry is a precious part of ourselves. It's the center of creativity. It's the whole stuff of creativity. It's the stuff of invention. It's the stuff of inspiration and intuition. So it's not something we want to get rid of or even hide from. And certainly at a Sesshin, when we sit this long time, bits and pieces of that come up in us quite naturally. And if we are keen to catch it, we allow it to just open up a bit, just open and take a look, because we're not complete without it, without the full acceptance of the dark side. I mean, I know even within, I speak about that as creativity and opening and so forth, we're also capable of terrible things, all of us. And we know that also, and we don't want to look at that. But that capability doesn't mean that we would act on it necessarily. It's just the full palette of what it is to be human. And that capacity is within the human mind, as we all well know. So this light and dark, of course, appears throughout Zen poetry. It appears in the Tao Te Ching. It appears in Dogen's teachings. And we are also led by the light of the Dharma and led by the light within ourselves that recognizes the Dharma. We don't come to the Dharma except that it's already in us and we recognize it, and so we see. There's nothing new in practice. There's nothing new in the Buddhist teachings or in Zen teachings at all, except what's already in us. We see it because we recognize it. We recognize ourselves in it. And sometimes that's a hard thing also to admit, because we, the dark side of us tells us how our own insecurities or our own incapacity to be able to recognize our own Buddha nature. If we can see Buddha nature in another person, that's already our Buddha nature. You can't look at another person and see Buddha nature except that your own self is seeing it. So this, of course, is the function of light in the Sangha, that we see Buddha in others. And that reflection then allows us to go forward in the recognition of the Buddha within. And of course, we also know that when we live together like this, as we come together for all of these days, all kinds of things aside from Buddha nature can jump into the middle and can be terribly irritated by something, and also quite normal. Koen Roshi, my first teacher, always referred to Sesshin as going to the hospital. We all come to the hospital. You can't get out. You're fed 3 meals a day. We get to wander around the hospital while we are, and we sit and so forth, and we're kind of taken care of. And the hope is that we get repaired in the midst of being together like this, that we repair ourselves in whatever condition we came with, whatever condition we are in, that we bring to Sesshin, we are repaired at the end of it. Little by little, whatever pieces of us that are rubbing against our heart, rubbing in our heart or rubbing in our mind or soul, little by little is extinguished. O you of the pure gaze, of the gaze of great and goodwill. Little by little are extinguished. I love that line in Myoho Rengekyo. And practice does that. It just begins to wash away those raw pieces of ourselves that we brought with us, that we are working on. And that is the work of both light and dark, that we look into the dark and we allow the light to shine on that darkness, to be able to see deeply in the whole of ourselves, looking at the dark side of the moon. I told you that story already of my time of desperate doubt, of raising 3 teenagers and working so hard in San Francisco and trying to pay the rent and get my kids through college and so forth, single parent. And I really was filled with grave doubt. I didn't think I would take my own life, but you get to the edge of the cliff sometimes in life and you just don't know where to go. But I told the story that if Avalokiteshvara was real, and if the Bodhisattva was real, I wanted that Bodhisattva to show up because I was at my wit's end. I couldn't go further. And I was walking up the street from where we lived in outer Richmond in San Francisco. And as I got to the corner, this man came around. He had his white stick, he was blind, and he heard my footsteps. And he spoke to me. And he said, "Oh, do you live on this block?" And he was living in darkness. He was blind from birth and had never known what light was like. So those moments come to us out of the darkness. We are given light truly when we need it. If we totally ask for it, we are shown the way, we are shown the path, some flashlight shines on it for us. So indeed, everything we need is there. Everything we are is already what we are and complete. Shining light on all of the parts of ourselves is better to open it out, but it's all there. Everything we need is there. Sometimes I just sit here and wait for something to come. That's like waiting for the light to shine. I really appreciate Roshi my teacher. Roshi is, first, he's one of the kindest priests I've ever known. But he is endlessly positive about life. Same age as I am, but endlessly confident that everything is there, everything will work out. So he's the same age as I am. And he's got a piece of land. And he said, if you have a piece of land, you should build a temple on it. He's going to build a new temple. He's 84, same as I am. And no hesitation. And I said, well, I have a piece of land also, but I'm going to leave it for the next person. And he said, I'm not. I'm going to build a temple. You should build a temple while you can build a temple while you're still here. But I don't think another temple on our land there is quite what we would do. But I'm going to leave it for the next person. But I really appreciate the light that comes out of him. His name is Wise Dragon. Wise Dragon, and clear, bright. Clear, bright, that's it. Clear, bright. Clear brightness. And that's how he lives in the light of the Dharma, shining constantly in the Dharma and endlessly solving whatever comes toward him, endlessly just figuring it out, always figuring it out. And I feel that anybody engaged in Zen practice is doing the same thing. That you come to the cushion and you're working it out, working out your life, stabilizing your life, learning from the difficulties of the body in a sesshin like this, and the difficulties of sitting and the array of travels that we do in Sesshin. I mean, go to Zanzibar and back in 15 minutes and just travel all around the world in the mind. And gradually, as we do that, as the mind is a bit chaotic in coming to Sesshin, gradually, it slows down and we release all of the images that come up, and they just sort of wash away into the pure light of sitting. And how we appreciate the darkness of sleep in Sesshin also. But you go into the darkness when you lie down and all the lights get turned off. And when you think about it, your mind is constantly full of light. I mean, when is it not full of light? You put on an eye mask maybe and just get totally dark, and the images are full of light. So right in light there is darkness, right in darkness there is light.